All right, I'm back to the show. What did I miss? No, seriously. I've missed you guys, but I had to take a break and reassess. I was getting a little burned out. I was also lucky enough to get some work over the past few weeks. I took a little vacation up the California coast and stayed at a hotel. That was nice. But I ate at a restaurant inside. Well, that was over 20 days ago now, so I think I'm okay, thankfully, and I'm definitely not doing anything like that again anytime soon. So today I mostly just want to get back into the swing of things. And I want to express some thoughts that I've been having about the United States and its response to the pandemic. Let's get to the episode. Well, as usual, the United States of America is number one. Number one in cases of COVID-19, but only ninth in terms of deaths per 100,000. So we can do better there if we just try a little harder. Now, how did we get here? Well, sometime last week, the president finally wore a mask in front of the camera for the first time. And the WHO is debating whether to declare that a virus could be transmitted in the air. Seriously? Dr. Fauci, considered by many the public voice of reason and caution when it comes to the pandemic, admitted to lying to the public about the importance of wearing masks early on so there wouldn't be a shortage of them. Now, I'm not sure what's worse here. Admitting that our citizens are selfish capitalistic morons that can't be trusted with the truth, or that the government was so woefully underprepared for a global pandemic, even though our own military told us years ago that it was one of the biggest threats to the country. Now, I made a video about masks and that you should wear one on April 2nd, and I accused doctors and the media of lying to us back then. I was correct, because it's not rocket science. But only this month have masks become mandatory in some states, and only because cases are skyrocketing. New Zealand declared themselves virus-free on June 11th. How? With a strong, early, coordinated response. And while, of course, comparing a relatively small island nation with a massive country of 350 million and two borders isn't fair, it's the perfectly extreme contrast to what the United States has done. We've had the exact opposite of a coordinated, strong response. Instead, our amazing system of states' rights allowed some to open early, before cases of the virus were under control. And in fact, all the government did really was issue guidelines for reopening. So what happened there? There was no PPE early on, and no clear direction. Unemployment assistance through the CARES Act was actually pretty good. The problem? Delivery. It took weeks, if not months, for many to receive any relief. Ancient computer systems and understaffed organizations couldn't get the payments out quickly enough. Protests began to open up the economy. Maskless protests at that. I made an episode about those protests on April 20th, in which I pointed out how much more efficiently and fairly workers in other countries were compensated. Promised repeatedly by leading Democrats, but not included in any of the stimulus bill, was financial aid for the states themselves, basically guaranteeing that less financially stable states would open before they had the virus under control. Vague guidelines from conflicting sources set us up for failure and led to boredom and fatigue. The media pushed sensational headlines, promoting non-peer-reviewed studies without explaining them, leading the average citizen to get tired of the hype and to lose their fear of the virus. Now, eventually, I think we mostly delivered on the bailout, but we obviously spent too much. The upper 1% have become even richer in the middle of a pandemic. Goldman Sachs, where Steve Mnuchin used to work, made record profits in the second quarter. So did Morgan Stanley and other investment firms. So while the economy tanked, millions of people lost their jobs, mortgage defaults are climbing rapidly, and GDP is expected to be down 7% this year. The stock market has recovered most of its 2020 losses with record quarters, all propped up yet again by money borrowed from future generations. So what's the point of my rant? Well, it's that it's all relative, isn't it? And some risk is worth the reward. That risk is different for all of us, and that's the most American thing ever, right? Well, I argued back on March 30th that we should have had a mandatory 14 to 21-day lockdown nationwide. Boom, problem mostly over, with the majority of cases either discovered or survived through quarantine. But that would inflict on your rights. You can't have that. Why can't you have that? Because in the United States of America, you live for the idea of personal freedom. Most don't actually have much of it, but you convince yourself that you do. And what most people do with that sense of personal freedom is to compete violently with each other. USA could stand for unashamedly selfish absolutists. Now, the lengths people will go in this country to get what they want are extreme, and that is also why it is considered great to live here. That sense of Wild West entrepreneurial freedom is a real thing, but those freedoms usually come at the cost of others, and not the mutual benefit of us all. So because of these attitudes and principles, outside of a vaccine, there are only two real ways to end the pandemic in the United States: patriotism and fear. We lost our chance to be patriotic right off the bat, when it was maybe still possible to convince everyone to completely lock down for just a short time as a country, together, to save the economy and our normal way of life. But we were given mixed messages by authority, and we were too divided as a country, focused on whose fault it was. So now it's too late for that. So we're left with the only other thing that Americans understand: fear. And that fear is going to have to be of dying from the virus. And I think it will have to be about a 30% chance or greater of death if you contract it for the majority of Americans to be afraid enough to change their behavior. So what does this mean for the future of the United States? It's been a shame, really, watching this country slowly implode decade after decade. The response to the pandemic has revealed just how far we've fallen and how divided we have become as a country. All empires come to an end, but it's not the Russians, it's not the Chinese, it's not the Iranians or North Koreans. It's us. We are doing it to ourselves. The greatest country on earth can't defend itself from an invisible enemy. The United States became great by getting together as a nation to fight the Nazis. And to this day, it's very easy to rally Americans into bombing and invading other countries. But there has not been, and there will not be, a unifying patriotic rallying cry for war on COVID-19. So we will continue to watch. We will watch other countries return to something resembling normal, having employed a calculated and coordinated approach. And while we wait for that vaccine, we'll watch the USA continue to lie to itself and hasten its own decline. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and share, and consider subscribing for more content like this. As a subscriber, you can enable the bell icon and be alerted when I post new videos or live streams. Thank you.